The true story of Steve Jobs. Welcome back to my channel, Miss Mythos. Today's story is about a man who changed the world with his ideas, his passion, and his ability to think differently. This is the true story of Steve Jobs, a story about creativity, struggle, and the power of never giving up on your vision. Steve Jobs was not born rich. He wasn't the most educated. In fact, he dropped out of college after just 6 months. But what made him different was his curiosity, his hunger to learn, even outside the classroom. He said, "I never graduated from college, but dropping out was one of the best decisions I ever made." Let's go back to where it all began. Steve Jobs was born in 1955 and was adopted by a kind couple who promised to give him a good education. From a young age, he was deeply curious about machines and how things worked. He would take apart radios and televisions just to see what was inside. He wasn't interested in memorizing facts, he wanted to understand things. After high school, he went to college, but he soon realized that his parents were spending all their savings on his tuition, and he wasn't sure if it was worth it. So he dropped out, but he didn't stop learning. He attended the classes he actually enjoyed, like calligraphy. That class, which seemed useless at the time, later inspired the beautiful fonts on the first Apple computers. That's the first lesson from his life. Sometimes, the dots don't connect now, but they will connect later. Years later, in his parents' small garage, Steve Jobs and his friend Steve Wozniak started building computers. They had no big company, no investors, just a dream and a few tools. They worked day and night, building and testing, until finally they created the first Apple computer. They named it Apple, simple, clean, and different. The company grew quickly, and soon Apple became a huge success. Steve Jobs was only 25 years old and already a millionaire. But his journey was just beginning. As Apple expanded, conflicts started to rise. Steve's perfectionism made him difficult to work with. He wanted everything to be perfect: the design, the feel, the user experience. He wasn't afraid to argue, to demand, to push others to their limits. And one day, the board of Apple decided to fire him from his own company. Imagine that, being kicked out of the company you created. Steve said it was devastating. But he also said it was one of the best things that ever happened to him. Because it forced him to start again, to be creative again, without the pressure of success. He started a new company called Next, and also bought a small animation studio called Pixar. Pixar later created the world's first fully computer-animated film, Toy Story. That movie changed the film industry forever. Years later, Apple was struggling, and the company decided to bring Steve Jobs back. He returned, full of new ideas and a stronger vision than ever. He designed products that were not just useful, but beautiful. The iMac, the iPod, the iPhone, the iPad, each one changed the way people lived, worked, and connected. When the first iPhone was released in 2007, the world was never the same again. He once said, "People don't know what they want until you show it to them." That was his magic. He could see the future before anyone else did. But behind the success, Steve Jobs was also fighting a battle, a silent one. He was diagnosed with cancer, but he kept working, kept creating, kept dreaming. Even when his body grew weak, his vision stayed strong. In one of his most famous speeches at Stanford University, he said, "Remembering that I'll be dead soon is the most important tool I've ever encountered to make big choices in life. Because almost everything, all external expectations, all pride, all fear of embarrassment, just falls away in the face of death, leaving only what is truly important." He reminded everyone that time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life. Don't let the noise of others' opinions drown out your own inner voice. And most importantly, have the courage to follow your heart and intuition. Steve Jobs passed away in 2011, but his legacy lives on in every iPhone, every iPad, every MacBook, and in every dreamer who dares to think differently. His story teaches us that failure is not the opposite of success, it's part of it. Being fired didn't destroy him, it redefined him. And his curiosity, his obsession with perfection, and his belief in creativity shaped the world we live in today. Steve Jobs once said, "Stay hungry. Stay foolish." And maybe that's the best advice for all of us: never stop learning, never stop exploring, and never stop believing in your ideas, even when others don't see them yet. Thank you for watching the true story of Steve Jobs. If this video inspired you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Miss Mythos for more real-life stories that teach motivation and life lessons. Remember, success begins the moment you stop following and start creating.